All right, so today we're going to dive into tax clerk interview prep.
Okay.
Imagine walking into that interview feeling like you've got this, you know, knowing exactly how to answer those tricky questions.
Yeah.
That's what we want you to feel walking out of this deep dive.
Right.
We've got some awesome resources from RoleCatcher to guide us their career, guide the interview guide, and we'll even touch on how their AI can be your secret weapon.
It's interesting because a lot of the Tax Clerk interview questions are really trying to gauge how you think, not just what you know.
Hmm.
So really getting kind of behind those questions and figuring out what they're really asking is key.
Okay, so before we get into the hot seat, let's do a super quick overview of the tax clerk role.
Sure.
What are the key things you'd say someone needs to know walking into an interview for this kind of position?
Well, the career guide emphasizes a couple things. First, tax laws are constantly changing, so interviewers are going to be looking for signs that you are dedicated to staying updated. Think certifications, professional development, that sort of thing. And second, attention to detail is non-negotiable in this role. Accuracy is everything when you're dealing with people's finances.
Got it.
Yeah.
So accuracy and a commitment to staying current are like at the top of the list.
Yes.
All right, now let's get into those interview questions. The interview guide is packed with them, but we'll focus on some of the most common ones.
Okay.
First up, tell us about your experience with tax preparation software. I bet this comes up in almost every tax clerk interview, right?
Absolutely. And they're not just looking for a list of software names here. They want to know how comfortable you are with the tools of the trade.
Okay.
So did you use a specific program to prepare individual returns? Or maybe you have experience with software for small business taxes?
Yeah.
Be ready to give some concrete examples.
So even if you're just starting out and haven't used a ton of different software, you should still be prepared to talk about what experience you do have.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
If you've taken any courses or even just explored some of the popular software options, mention that. It shows initiative and a willingness to learn. And if you have any transferable skills from other software like spreadsheet proficiency, highlight those too. Interviewers want to see that you can learn new systems quickly.
That's a great tip.
Yeah.
What about those who haven't used any tax software yet? What's the best way to approach this question?
Honesty is always key.
Okay.
Don't try to fake expertise you don't have. Instead, focus on your enthusiasm for learning new tools and your ability to grasp technical concepts quickly. You could say something like, I'm eager to learn industry standard software, like mention a specific program and confident in my ability to master it quickly.
Okay, I love that approach.
Yeah.
Now, the second question for the interview guide is, how do you stay updated with changes in tax laws? This one sounds a little intimidating.
Right.
How do you even begin to answer that without feeling overwhelmed by all the constantly changing regulations?
Well, don't worry. It's not about knowing every single tax code update. They want to see that you're proactive and committed to staying informed. So think about what resources you use. Do you follow any industry blogs or publications? Have you taken any continuing education courses? Maybe you're a member of a professional organization like the National Association of Tax Professionals? Mentioning these shows initiative and dedication.
Okay, those are great examples. So instead of saying, I just Google it when I need to, you're suggesting we showcase a more structured approach to staying informed.
Right, exactly. And it doesn't have to be complicated. Even mentioning a specific podcast you listen to or a website you follow demonstrates that you're actively engaged in the field.
Okay, here's a question that I think a lot of people struggle with. Can you provide an example of a challenging tax situation you encountered and how you resolved it? I can see this one throwing people off guard, especially if they're new to the field.
It is a tricky one, but it's all about showcasing your problem-solving skills. You don't need to come up with some elaborate story if you haven't encountered a major tax dilemma in your career yet. Instead, think about a time when you had to solve a problem involving numbers or financial information.
So even if it wasn't strictly tax related, it could still be relevant if it demonstrates those critical thinking skills.
Absolutely. Maybe you had to reconcile a discrepancy in a budget, or perhaps you caught an error in a financial report. Anything that shows you can identify problems, analyze information, and come up with solutions is valuable.
Okay, and let's say you do have an experience directly related to taxes. What are the key things you should highlight in your answer?
Focus on the steps you took to resolve the situation. Did you consult with a supervisor or a more experienced colleague?
Okay.
Did you refer to tax codes or regulations? Did you use any specific software or tools? Walking them through your process demonstrates your ability to think critically and find solutions.
Got it. Now let's shift gears a bit and talk about a question that focuses on a key skill for tax clerks. How do you ensure accuracy when preparing tax returns?
Okay.
What are the interviewers really trying to assess here?
Detail-oriented, meticulous.
Yeah.
Tax returns require absolute precision.
Mm-hmm.
So highlight the steps you take to double-check your work. Do you use spreadsheets for calculations?
Okay.
Do you have a system for reviewing data entry? Maybe you have a habit of cross-referencing information with official sources? Sharing these details shows that you take accuracy seriously.
So it's not enough to just say, I'm really careful.
Right.
You need to provide concrete examples of your process.
Exactly. Show them you have a system in place to catch errors and ensure accuracy.
Okay, here's a question that's a bit more personal.
Huh?
How do you prioritize your workload during tax season? I imagine things can get pretty hectic during that time of year.
Oh, absolutely. This question is all about your ability to manage stress and stay organized under pressure. They want to see that you can handle multiple tasks and deadlines without getting overwhelmed. So think about your time management strategies. Do you use a planner or a to-do list?
Yeah.
Do you break down large projects into smaller chunks? Maybe you have a system for prioritizing urgent tasks.
Okay.
Share whatever methods help you stay on top of your workload.
So it's not about portraying yourself as a superhero who can handle everything at once, but rather showing that you have strategies for managing your time effectively.
Precisely. It's more impressive to demonstrate that you're organized and efficient than to suggest that you thrive on chaos.
This next question is more technical. Can you explain the difference between tax credits and tax deductions?
Okay.
It seems like they're trying to gauge your understanding of some fundamental tax concepts here.
You're right on the mark.
Yeah.
It's not about reciting textbook definitions, but rather showing that you grasp the practical implications of these concepts. So start by explaining each term in simple language.
Yeah, okay.
A tax credit directly reduces the amount of tax you owe, while a deduction reduces your taxable income.
Okay.
Then give a real-world example to illustrate the difference.
Can you give us an example of a clear and concise way to explain this?
Sure. You could say, imagine you owe $1,000 in taxes. A $200 tax credit would directly reduce your bill to $800. A $200 deduction, on the other hand, would reduce your taxable income, leading to a smaller reduction in your final tax bill, depending on your tax bracket. It's all about making it relatable.
Okay, so clear explanations and real-world examples are key. Now, before we move on to the next question, I want to touch on something we mentioned earlier, RoleCatcher's AI.
Okay.
How can this technology help us tailor our answers to specific job roles?
That's a great question. RoleCatcher's AI is like having a personal interview coach in your pocket. One of the things it can do is analyze job descriptions and identify the keywords and skills that employers are looking for.
So it's like getting a sneak peek into the interviewer's mind.
Exactly.
Okay.
You can then use that information to fine-tune your answers and highlight the most relevant aspects of your experience.
I love that. It's like having a secret weapon in your interview arsenal.
Precisely. It gives you that extra edge by ensuring your responses align perfectly with what the employer is seeking.
Okay, back to those interview questions. This one sounds like it could be tricky. Can you explain the difference between a W-2 and a 1099 form? It seems like they're testing our knowledge of specific tax forms here.
You got it. And this is where a basic understanding of tax forms comes in handy. Think about who uses each form and what information they contain. A W-2 is for employees and reports wages and salary information, while a 1099 is for independent contractors and reports income from self-employment.
So if you've ever had a traditional job, you've probably received a W-2.
Right.
If you've done any freelance work, you might have received a 1099. Is that a good way to think about it?
That's a great way to relate it to personal experience.
Okay, here's another question that I think a lot of people find challenging.
Yeah.
How do you handle difficult clients? It seems like a classic interview question, but I imagine it's especially relevant in a field where emotions can run high during tax season.
You're absolutely right. This question is all about showcasing your interpersonal skills and your ability to navigate challenging situations with professionalism and empathy.
Okay.
The key here is to provide a concrete example of a time when you successfully handled a difficult client interaction.
So instead of just saying, I'm good with people, you need to back it up with a real-life story.
Exactly. Describe the situation briefly, focusing on the actions you took to de-escalate the situation and find a resolution.
Okay.
Did you listen actively to the client's concerns? Did you explain things clearly and calmly? Did you offer alternative solutions? Highlight those skills that demonstrate your ability to handle challenging interpersonal dynamics.
Great advice. So it's all about showing, not telling, right?
Precisely. Give them specific examples that demonstrate your ability to handle those tricky situations with grace and professionalism.
All right, let's wrap up part 1 of our tax clerk interview prep with one final question. How do you handle confidential client information? This one seems pretty straightforward, but I imagine there are some nuances to consider.
You're right. They want to see that you understand the gravity of handling sensitive information.
Okay.
Highlight your commitment to following data security protocols and maintaining client privacy.
So it's not enough to just say, I'm trustworthy.
Right.
We need to provide concrete examples.
Exactly. Share specific examples of how you've handled confidential information in the past.
Okay.
Did you follow strict procedures for storing documents? Did you use password protection for digital files? Mentioning those details reinforces your commitment to data security.
Okay, so demonstrating our understanding of confidentiality protocols and providing real-world examples is key.
You got it.
All right, well, that's a wrap for part 1 of our tax clerk interview prep. We've covered a lot of ground, but stay tuned for part 2, where we'll delve even deeper into those challenging interview questions and explore more ways RoleCatcher can help you shine in that all-important interview.
We've got more great tips and insights coming up, so don't go anywhere.
See you soon.
Bye.
Welcome back. I'm feeling energized after all those great interview tips we covered in part 1. Ready to tackle some more?
Absolutely. Let's dive right in with a question that often comes up in tax clerk interviews. What are your salary expectations?
Okay.
Now, this one can feel a bit tricky, but it's a chance to show that you've done your research.
Okay, so how do we approach this without sounding either too demanding or too lowballing ourselves?
First, research the typical salary range for tax clerks in your area. Websites like salary.com and Glassdoor can be super helpful for this.
Right.
And then consider your own experience level and qualifications, So it's not just about throwing out a number, it's about justifying it based on market data and your own skills.
Exactly. You could say something like, based on my research and experience, I'm targeting a salary range, a specific range. But I'm open to discussing this further based on the specific responsibilities of the role.
Perfect. Yeah.
That sounds much more confident than just blurting out a number.
Yeah.
Now let's move on to a question that focuses on a key skill for tax clerks. How do you handle stress, especially during tax season? I can imagine things get pretty intense.
You're not wrong. Tax season is definitely a high-pressure time. But this is your chance to showcase your resilience and coping mechanisms.
Okay.
Interviewers want to see that you can stay calm and focused even when things get hectic.
So should we talk about things like meditation or yoga?
Those are definitely great stress relievers, but try to focus on strategies that are relevant to the workplace.
Yeah.
Maybe you have a system for staying organized and prioritizing tasks. Perhaps you're great at delegating or asking for help when needed.
Okay.
So it's about highlighting those practical skills that help you manage stress on the job.
Exactly. You could say something like, I'm someone who thrives under pressure. I stay organized, prioritize tasks, and break down large projects into manageable chunks. I also believe in communicating effectively with my team to ensure we're all on the same page.
That's great.
That sounds much better than saying, I just drink a lot of coffee.
Yeah.
Okay, here's a question that seems to come up in a lot of interviews, regardless of the industry. What are your strengths and weaknesses? This one can be tough, but I know there are some strategies for tackling it effectively.
You're right. When discussing strengths, choose those that are directly relevant to the tax clerk role, like attention to detail, accuracy, a knack for numbers.
Okay.
When it comes to weaknesses, choose something that you're actively working on improving.
So instead of saying, I'm a perfectionist, which can sound cliche,
Right.
you're suggesting we frame it as something we're striving to get better at.
Exactly. For example, you could say, I sometimes get so focused on details that I can lose sight of the bigger picture. To address this, I'm working on improving my time management skills and learning to delegate tasks effectively.
Okay.
It shows self-awareness and a commitment to growth.
I love that approach. Now let's talk about a question that can really throw people off guard.
Yeah.
Why are you interested in this particular role at our company? It seems straightforward, but I can see how people might stumble if they haven't prepared for it.
Yeah, it's all about connecting the dots between your skills and interests and what the company has to offer. Do some research on the company's mission values and recent initiatives.
Okay.
Then think about what excites you about the specific role and how it aligns with your career goals.
So instead of just saying, I need a job, we should show that we've put some thought into why this particular company and this particular role are a good fit for us.
Absolutely. You could say something like, I'm really impressed with your company's commitment to mention a specific value or initiative, and I believe that my skills and mention relevant skills would be a valuable asset to your team.
That sounds much more compelling than a generic response.
Yeah.
Now, speaking of tailoring responses, let's revisit RoleCatcher's AI and how it can help us prepare for these types of questions.
Excellent point. Remember, RoleCatcher's AI can analyze specific job descriptions and identify those keywords and skills that employers are seeking.
Right.
You can then use that information to refine your answers and highlight the most relevant aspects of your experience.
It's like having a secret decoder ring for job descriptions.
Exactly. It helps you understand what the employer is really looking for so you can present yourself as the ideal candidate.
Okay, back to those interview questions. This one is a bit more open-ended. Tell me about yourself. It seems simple enough, but it can actually be quite challenging to answer effectively.
Yeah. It's a great opportunity to showcase your personality and highlight the skills and experiences that are most relevant to the role.
Okay.
Keep it concise and focused, highlighting your key strengths and accomplishments.
So it's not about telling our life story, but rather presenting a curated version of ourselves that aligns with the job requirements.
You got it. Think about what you want the interviewer to remember about you. What makes you stand out as a candidate? What unique skills or experiences do you bring to the table?
Okay, I'm starting to see the strategy here.
Yeah.
Now let's move on to a question that focuses on teamwork. Tell me about a time you had to work as part of a team to achieve a goal. It seems like collaboration is a key skill in most workplaces, so this one is probably pretty common.
You're absolutely right. When answering this question, choose an example that demonstrates your ability to contribute to a team effort, communicate effectively, and resolve conflicts constructively.
So it's not enough to just say, I'm a team player.
Right.
We need to provide a specific example that showcases our teamwork skills in action.
Exactly. Describe the situation, your role in the team, the challenges you faced, and the outcome you achieved together. Highlight those moments where you demonstrated strong communication, collaboration, and problem-solving skills.
Okay, I'm starting to feel more confident about tackling these teamwork questions. Now let's shift gears a bit and talk about a topic that's not directly related to interview questions, but is super important for career success certifications. The RoleCatcher Career Guide mentioned a few that can really boost your credibility as a tax clerk.
You're right. Certifications demonstrate a deeper level of knowledge and commitment to the field, which can make you a more attractive candidate to employers.
Can you remind us about some of the key certifications mentioned in the guide?
Of course, the Certified Tax Preparer, CTP, is a great option for those who want to specialize in individual tax preparation. The Enrolled Agent, EA designation, allows you to represent taxpayers before the IRS, which can open up more advanced career opportunities. And the Certified Public Accountant, CPA, is the gold standard for accounting professionals, providing a wide range of career paths.
So even though these certifications might not be required for entry-level tax clerk positions, they can definitely give you a competitive edge in the job market.
Absolutely. And they show employers that you're serious about your career and invested in your professional development.
Okay, here's another question that focuses on problem solving. How do you approach a task when you don't know where to start? This one seems like it's designed to see how we handle those moments of uncertainty.
Exactly. They want to see that you're resourceful and proactive when faced with unfamiliar tasks. So think about a time when you had to figure something out on your own. Did you research online? Did you consult with colleagues or mentors? Did you break down the task into smaller steps?
So instead of panicking or giving up, we should showcase our ability to think critically and find solutions.
You got it. It's about demonstrating that you have the initiative and resourcefulness to tackle challenges head on.
Okay, I'm starting to see a pattern here. Preparation, resourcefulness, and a positive attitude are key to acing those interview questions. Now, before we move on, can we talk about how RoleCatcher's AI can help us prepare these types of problem-solving questions?
That's a great point. Remember, RoleCatcher's AI can analyze job descriptions and identify the specific skills and qualities that employers are seeking.
Yay.
In this case, it might highlight keywords like problem-solving, critical thinking, or resourcefulness.
Okay.
By understanding what employers are looking for, you can tailor your answers to emphasize those strengths.
So it's like having a cheat sheet for the interview.
It's more like having a personalized guide that helps you put your best foot forward.
I love it. Okay, ready for the next challenge?
Absolutely. Here it is. Tell me about a time you made a mistake at work. How did you handle it? Now, this one can feel a bit daunting, but it's an opportunity to demonstrate your accountability and professionalism.
Okay, so we shouldn't try to pretend we've never made a mistake, right?
Exactly.
I mean,
Everyone makes mistakes, and interviewers know that what they're really interested in is how you handle those situations.
so how do we approach this question without making ourselves sound incompetent?
Choose an example that is relatable and doesn't involve a major ethical violation or serious negligence. Focus on the steps you took to rectify the situation, the lessons you learned, and the steps you've taken to prevent similar mistakes in the future.
So it's about turning a negative experience into a positive learning opportunity.
Precisely. You could say something like, in my previous role, I accidentally described the mistake briefly. I immediately described the steps you took to fix the mistake. From that experience, I learned the importance of mention a specific lesson learned and have mention a specific strategy to prevent future mistakes.
That sounds much better than saying, I don't know. I can't remember ever making a mistake. Okay, let's move on to a question that focuses on our long-term goals. Where do you see yourself in 5 years? This one can be a bit tricky, especially if we're not entirely sure what the future holds.
You're right. It's not about having a crystal ball, but rather showing that you've given some thought to your career trajectory and that your aspirations align with the opportunities available at the company.
So should we have a specific job title in mind?
Yeah. It's helpful to have some ideas, but it's more about expressing your desire for growth and development within the company. You could say something like, in 5 years, I hope to have developed my skills and mention specific areas and taken on more responsibilities and mention areas of interest within the company. I'm excited about the opportunities for professional growth that your company offers.
That sounds much more strategic than just saying, I want your job. Okay, before we jump into the next question, I want to quickly highlight something we discussed earlier, the importance of continuous learning.
You're absolutely right. The tax landscape is constantly evolving, so staying up to date is essential for success in this field. The RoleCatcher Career Guide emphasized this as well.
I mentioned a few ways to do this, right?
Exactly. It highlighted the value of joining professional organizations like the NWTP, attending industry conferences, and taking continuing education courses.
So even after landing the tax clerk job, the learning never really stops.
That's the beauty of this field. It's always challenging and always evolving, which keeps things interesting.
I love that perspective. Okay, ready for another question?
You bet. This one focuses on your ability to adapt to change. Tell me about a time you had to adapt to a new situation or process at work. Change is a constant in today's workplace, so employers want to see that you're flexible and adaptable.
So what kind of example should we choose for this one?
Think about a time when you had to learn a new software program, adjust to a new company policy, or perhaps take on a new responsibility.
Okay.
Highlight your ability to learn, quickly adjust to new circumstances, and maintain a positive attitude throughout the process.
So it's not about resisting change, but rather embracing it and showcasing our ability to adapt.
Exactly. You could say something like, when our company implemented a new describe the change, I was initially describe your initial reaction. However, I quickly described the steps you took to adapt and was able to describe the positive outcome.
Okay, so resilience, adaptability, and a willingness to learn are key themes here. Now, before we move on to the next question, I want to quickly touch on something we haven't discussed yet. RoleCatcher's AI-powered interview practice feature.
That's a great point. Remember, RoleCatcher doesn't just help you prepare for the content of the interview, but also the delivery.
Okay.
You can practice answering questions like this one, record your responses, and get AI-powered feedback on your pacing tone and overall presentation.
It's like having a virtual mirror that helps you see how you come across in an interview setting.
Precisely. It's an incredibly valuable tool for refining your interviewing skills and boosting your confidence.
I love it. Okay, bring on that next question.
Here it is. Tell me about a time you had to deal with a conflict at work. Conflict resolution is a valuable skill in any workplace, so be prepared to share an example of how you've successfully navigated a challenging situation.
So should we avoid talking about conflicts altogether?
Not necessarily. It's more about showcasing your ability to handle conflicts constructively and professionally.
Okay, so what kind of example should we choose?
Choose a situation that wasn't overly personal or dramatic, focusing on the steps you took to listen to all parties involved, understand their perspectives, and find a solution that addressed everyone's concerns.
So it's about highlighting our communication and problem-solving skills, right?
Exactly. You could say something like, in my previous role, there was a disagreement between describe the parties involved regarding describe the issue briefly. I facilitated a conversation where describe the steps you took to resolve the conflict. As a result, describe the positive outcome.
That's a great example of how to turn a potentially negative situation into a positive one. It really highlights the importance of those soft skills, like communication and conflict resolution.
Absolutely. Remember, technical skills are essential, but those interpersonal skills that allow you to work effectively with clients and colleagues are equally valuable.
Now, speaking of challenges, I think it's time for a quick reminder about how RoleCatcher can help prepare for these tough questions.
Excellent point. RoleCatcher's AI doesn't just analyze resumes, it also provides feedback on your interview responses. You can practice answering questions like this one, record your responses, and get AI-powered insights on how to improve your delivery and content.
That's like having a personal interview coach in your pocket.
Precisely. It's all about maximizing your chances of success. Ready to tackle the next question?
Absolutely. What's next on the interview agenda?
Question number 5. How do you prioritize your workload during tax season? Get ready to talk about time management.
Oh boy, tax season. It sounds like the interviewers are trying to gauge how you handle stress and manage multiple deadlines.
Exactly. This question is all about showcasing your organizational skills and ability to thrive under pressure. They want to see if you can juggle multiple tasks without dropping the ball, especially during the busiest time of year.
So what's the best way to approach this question? Should you create a detailed schedule and present it to them?
While a well-organized schedule is helpful in real life, you don't need to go that deep in the interview. Instead, focus on your approach to prioritization. Do you use a to-do list? Do you color-code tasks based on urgency? Do you break down large projects into smaller, more manageable chunks?
What are some things to avoid saying? Like, I just work until I drop.
That's a surefire way to raise a red flag. You definitely want to demonstrate a healthy approach to workload management. Avoid portraying yourself as someone who constantly burns the midnight oil or sacrifices accuracy for speed.
Got it. Can we hear an example of a response that highlights those stellar time management skills?
Here's one. I prioritize my workload by first identifying deadlines and then categorizing tasks based on urgency. I use a task management system to keep track of everything and ensure nothing falls through the cracks. I also believe in clear communication with my team and clients to set realistic expectations and manage workloads effectively.
That sounds super organized and efficient. I'm starting to feel more zen just listening to that.
See, it's all about showcasing your ability to handle the heat and still deliver high-quality work.
Now, before we move on to the next question, can we talk about how RoleCatcher can help with tailoring our responses?
Absolutely. RoleCatcher's AI is incredibly helpful in this regard. Remember, it can analyze specific job descriptions and identify the keywords and skills that employers are looking for. You can then use that information to fine-tune your interview answers and highlight the most relevant aspects of your experience.
So it's not just about what you say, but also how you say it.
Precisely. RoleCatcher helps you craft responses that resonate with the specific company and role you're applying for.
All right, I'm ready for the next question. Hit me with it.
Question number 6. How do you ensure accuracy when preparing tax returns? Get ready to put on your detail-oriented hat.
Okay, I'm channeling my inner Sherlock Holmes for this one. What are the interviewers really trying to assess here?
This question is all about your meticulousness and commitment to precision. They want to know that you understand the importance of getting every detail right when it comes to taxes. After all, mistakes can lead to penalties, audits, and unhappy clients.
So how do you answer this without sounding like a robot who just follows a checklist?
You want to strike a balance between showcasing your systematic approach and highlighting your ability to think critically. Talk about your process for double-checking your work, using tools like spreadsheets or calculators for verification, and staying up to date on the latest tax code changes.
What are some pitfalls to avoid? Like, I just hope for the best.
Definitely avoid anything that suggests a lack of diligence or attention to detail. Don't rely solely on software to catch errors. Highlight your human touch and your commitment to accuracy.
Okay, got it. Can we hear an example of a response that radiates accuracy and precision?
Here's one. I ensure accuracy by following a multi-step verification process. I double-check all data entry, use spreadsheets to verify calculations, and consult relevant tax codes to confirm eligibility for deductions and credits. I also believe in seeking a second opinion from a colleague for complex cases to ensure nothing is overlooked.
That sounds like a recipe for tax return perfection.
It's all about demonstrating that you take accuracy seriously.
Now, before we move on to the next question, I want to touch on something we mentioned earlier, career progression. The RoleCatcher Career Guide talked about how a tax clerk role can be a stepping stone to bigger things.
You're right. This role can open doors to exciting possibilities. With experience and further education, you could become a tax accountant, tax analyst, or even a tax manager.
That's encouraging.
Right.
So even though we're focusing on the tax clerk interview, it's good to keep those long-term goals in mind.
Absolutely. It shows ambition and a desire for growth, which employers always appreciate.
Okay, I'm pumped for the next question. What do we got?
Here it is. How do you handle difficult clients? Get ready to put on your customer service hat.
Ooh, this one is a classic. Every job has its share of challenging clients, but in the world of taxes, I imagine emotions can run high. What are the interviewers really getting at with this question?
They're trying to assess your interpersonal skills, your ability to remain calm under pressure, and your knack for conflict resolution. They want to know that you can handle difficult situations with professionalism and empathy, even when dealing with frustrated or upset clients.
So how do you answer this without sounding like you're going to crumble under the slightest bit of pressure?
It's all about showcasing your emotional intelligence and communication skills. Share an example of a time when you successfully navigated a difficult client interaction. Focus on your ability to listen, actively understand their perspective, and find a mutually agreeable solution.
What are some things to avoid saying? Like, I just tell them to calm down.
That's definitely a no-go. Avoid anything that suggests a dismissive or confrontational approach. Instead, highlight your patient's empathy and ability to de-escalate tense situations.
Okay, I'm starting to see the pattern here. Stay calm, stay professional, and showcase those soft skills.
Yeah.
Can we hear an example of a response that demonstrates those qualities?
Here's one. I once had a client who was extremely upset about a tax penalty they incurred. I listened patiently to their concerns, explained the situation clearly, and explored all available options to help them minimize the penalty. By remaining calm and empathetic, I was able to resolve the situation and maintain a positive client relationship.
That's a great example of turning a potentially negative situation into a positive one. It really highlights the importance of those soft skills.
Absolutely. Remember, technical skills are essential,
Hmm.
but so are those interpersonal skills that allow you to work effectively with clients and colleagues.
Now, before we jump into the next question, I want to circle back to something we briefly touched on earlier, RoleCatcher's AI-powered resume analysis.
Yeah.
How can that help us prepare for this type of question?
That's a great question. RoleCatcher's AI can analyze job descriptions and identify the specific skills and qualities that employers are seeking. In this case, it might highlight keywords like customer service, communication skills, or conflict resolution. By understanding what employers are looking for, you can tailor your interview answers to emphasize those strengths.
So it's like having a cheat sheet for the interview.
It's more like having a personalized guide that helps you put your best foot forward.
I love it. Okay, I'm ready for the next challenge. What's question number 8?
Here it is. Can you explain the difference between tax credits and tax deductions? Get ready for a tax terminology test.
Okay, this sounds like they're trying to gauge our understanding of basic tax concepts.
Exactly. They want to make sure you have a firm grasp of the fundamentals. It's not about reciting textbook definitions, but demonstrating that you understand how these concepts work in practice.
So how do we approach this question without getting lost in technical jargon?
Start by briefly defining each term in simple language, then provide a clear example of each to illustrate the difference.
What should we avoid saying? Like, I think they're basically the same thing.
Definitely avoid any indication that you're unsure of the difference. It's better to acknowledge the question's complexity and then explain your understanding as clearly as possible.
Got it. Can we hear an example of a response that hits the sweet spot between accuracy and clarity?
Sure. You could say tax credits directly reduce the amount of tax you owe, while tax deductions reduce your taxable income, which in turn lowers your tax liability. For example, a child tax credit directly reduces your tax bill by a specific amount for each qualifying child, while a mortgage interest deduction reduces your taxable income by the amount of interest you paid on your mortgage.
That's a great explanation. I think even I understand the difference now.
See? It's all about breaking down complex concepts into bite-sized pieces.
Now, before we move on to the next question, I want to quickly highlight something we discussed earlier.
Yeah.
The importance of continuous learning.
You're absolutely right. The tax landscape is constantly evolving, so staying up to date is essential for success in this field.
The RoleCatcher Career Guide mentioned a few ways to do this, right?
Exactly. It highlighted the value of joining professional organizations like the NADP, attending industry conferences, and taking continuing education courses.
So even after landing the tax clerk job, the learning never really stops.
That's the beauty of this field. It's always challenging and always evolving, which keeps things interesting.
I love that perspective. Okay, I'm ready for question number 9. Bring it on.
Here it is. Can you explain the difference between a W-2 and a 1099 form? Get ready for another round of tax form trivia.
Okay, this sounds like a continuation of the previous question, but now we're getting into the nitty-gritty of specific tax forms.
You got it. This question tests your familiarity with common tax forms and your ability to explain their purpose. They want to make sure you're comfortable handling these documents, which are essential for tax preparation.
So how do we approach this question without sounding like we're reading from the IRS website?
Again, it's about clarity and practicality. Explain the key differences between the forms and who typically receives each one. Use real-life examples to make it relatable.
What are some pitfalls to avoid? Like, I've never actually seen those forms before.
That's a big red flag. These are fundamental tax forms, so you need to demonstrate some familiarity with them. Even if you haven't personally filled them out, you should understand their purpose and who uses them.
Okay, I'm getting the message. Know your tax forms. Can we hear an example of a response that showcases our tax form expertise?
Here's one. A W-2 form is used to report wages earned from an employer, while a 1099 form is used to report income earned from self-employment or independent contracting. For example, if you work for a company as an employee, you'll receive a W-2 at the end of the year. If you're a freelance writer or consultant, you'll likely receive a 1099 form.
That's a clear and concise explanation. I'm starting to feel like a tax expert myself.
See? It's all about breaking it down and making it relatable.
Now, before we move on to the final question, I want to quickly touch on something we haven't discussed yet. RoleCatcher's AI-powered interview practice feature.
That's a great point. Remember, RoleCatcher doesn't just help you prepare for the content of the interview, but also the delivery.
Okay.
You can practice answering questions like this one, record your responses, and get AI-powered feedback on your pacing, tone, and overall presentation.
It's like having a virtual mirror that helps you see how you come across in an interview setting.
Precisely. It's an incredibly valuable tool for refining your interviewing skills and boosting your confidence.
I love it. Okay, bring on that final question. I'm ready to conquer it.
Here it is. How do you handle confidential client information? Get ready to talk about discretion and data security.
Okay, this one is super important, especially in a field where you're dealing with sensitive financial data. What are the interviewers looking for with this question?
They want to know that you understand the gravity of handling confidential information and that you have the integrity and discretion to protect it. They're looking for someone who takes data security seriously and follows proper procedures to maintain client privacy.
So how do we answer this without sounding like we're reciting a legal disclaimer?
It's all about conveying your understanding of confidentiality protocols and highlighting your personal commitment to ethical conduct. Share specific examples of how you've handled sensitive information in the past, whether it was in a previous job volunteer role or even in your personal life.
What are some things to avoid saying, like, I just share everything with my friends?
That's a surefire way to get yourself blacklisted. Never underestimate the importance of confidentiality, especially when dealing with someone's financial information. Avoid any indication that you would share or disclose sensitive data without proper authorization.
Okay, got it. Can we hear an example of a response that demonstrates our commitment to confidentiality?
Here's one. I understand the importance of maintaining client confidentiality and treating all sensitive information with the utmost care. In my previous role, I handled client tax documents and financial records, ensuring they were stored securely and only accessed by authorized personnel. I also followed strict protocols for data encryption and password protection to safeguard digital information.
That sounds like a textbook example of how to handle confidential information responsibly.
It's all about demonstrating that you understand the importance of privacy and that you have the integrity to handle sensitive data ethically.
Well, that wraps up part 2 of our tax clerk interview prep deep dive.
Yeah.
We've covered a ton of ground, from salary expectations to handling difficult clients to demonstrating your commitment to confidentiality.
We've also explored how RoleCatcher can be your secret weapon, providing personalized insights and feedback to help you ace those interview questions.
Stay tuned for part 3, where we'll shift gears a bit and talk about the bigger picture career paths, growth opportunities, and how to really make this role your own.
We'll be right back after a quick break.
Welcome back to the final part of our tax clerk interview deep dive.
Yes.
We spent the last 2 parts focusing on those tricky interview questions.
We have.
And I think we've given our listeners some serious confidence boosters.
Yeah, definitely. But we're not done yet.
Okay.
There's more to landing your dream job than just acing those interview questions.
That's true.
So this time, let's kind of zoom out and look at the bigger picture.
I love that.
Things like career paths and growth opportunities.
Okay, so we've talked about the importance of showing employers that we're thinking long-term.
Right.
And the RoleCatcher Career Guide has some great insights into where a tax clerk role can lead.
It's not a dead-end job by any means. With experience and further education, a tax clerk position can be a fantastic stepping stone to more advanced roles.
Like what kind of roles?
Well, a natural progression would be to move into a tax accountant role.
Okay.
As a tax accountant, you'd have more responsibility for preparing and analyzing tax returns, and you might even specialize in a particular area of taxation.
Okay, so tax accountant is a logical next step. What else?
From there, you could become a tax analyst where you'd be more involved in tax planning and strategy. You might work with businesses to minimize their tax liabilities or help individuals with their estate planning.
That sounds really interesting. It seems like there are opportunities to specialize in different areas of tax law as you progress in your career.
Absolutely. And as you gain experience and expertise, you could even move into management roles such as tax manager or even tax director.
Wow, that's impressive. So there's a lot of room for growth and advancement in this field.
There is.
But what about those who are just starting out? How can they make themselves stand out as candidates, even without years of experience?
That's a great question. Remember those certifications we discussed earlier?
Yes.
The CTPEA and CPA designations?
Mm-hmm.
These are valuable credentials that demonstrate your commitment to professional development, even if you're just beginning your career.
So it's like getting a head start on those career goals.
Exactly. And it shows employers that you're serious about your career and invested in your professional growth.
Now, we've talked a lot about the technical skills required for a tax clerk role.
Right.
But what about those soft skills? Things like communication and teamwork. How important are those in this field?
They're absolutely essential. Tax clerks don't work in isolation.
Yeah.
They collaborate with colleagues, interact with clients, and often have to explain complex tax concepts in a way that's easy to understand.
So those interview questions about handling difficult clients and working effectively as part of a team,
Right.
those are really important.
Absolutely. Employers are looking for candidates who can not only handle the technical aspects of the job, but also navigate those interpersonal dynamics with professionalism and grace.
And we've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive.
We have.
But before we wrap up, I want to circle back to one of the most valuable resources we've discussed, RoleCatcher's AI.
Okay.
How can our listeners use this technology to really make this role their own?
That's a great point. RoleCatcher's AI can be a game changer throughout your career journey. It's not just about preparing for interviews. It can also help you identify growth opportunities,
Okay.
explore different career paths, and tailor your skills to the specific needs of the job market.
So it's like having a personalized career navigator.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It empowers you to take control of your professional destiny and make informed decisions about your future.
Well, that concludes our deep dive into the world of tax clerk interview preparation and career exploration. I hope you feel equipped with the knowledge, strategies, and resources to land your dream job and build a successful career in this dynamic and rewarding field.
I think so. Remember, with the right preparation and the right tools like those offered by RoleCatcher,
Yes.
you can turn those daunting interview questions into opportunities to showcase your skills, your personality, and your passion for this exciting field.
Awesome. Well, thanks for joining us on this deep dive, and until next time, happy learning.
See you there below, G.